The moment I heard the crunch of gears beneath his boots, I knew Ben had destroyed everything. My hidden room lay in ruins. 20 years of collecting rare mechanical puzzles gone. Each one forced open, their delicate mechanisms snapped, their beauty shattered. The Damascus cipher, my prized $200,000 puzzle, lay in pieces on the floor. Ben's note sat among the wreckage. Some things need to be solved the quick way. This wasn't theft. This was pure destruction for the joy of it. My best friend since childhood had used the spare key I'd given him to obliterate my passion. He'd smiled as I showed him each piece. He'd pretended to care. But beneath that mask, he'd been seething with jealousy for years. I'd won a puzzle competition a decade ago, and he'd never forgiven me for it. Ben thought breaking my puzzles would break me. He was wrong. He'd just taught me that some people deserve to have their lives taken apart piece by piece. And I was very good at solving complex problems. The scent of aging paper and leather bindings always calmed me. As head archivist for the city's historical society, I spent my days preserving fragments of the past. But my true sanctuary waited at home, hidden behind a false wall in my study. That's where I kept them, my puzzles. I turned the brass key in the concealed lock and pushed open the door. Soft lighting illuminated shelves lined with mechanical marvels from across centuries. Each puzzle represented a triumph of human ingenuity. The Chinese mystery box from the Ming Dynasty, the French cryptex with its rotating cylinders, the German enigma sphere that had taken me 3 months to solve. My fingers traced the smooth wood of my latest acquisition as I lifted it from its velvet case. The Damascus cipher, 500 years old, crafted by a master artisan in Syria. Its interlocking brass gears and silver inlays gleamed under the light. Only 12 existed in the world, and this one had cost me 2 years of savings and countless favors from collectors. The doorbell echoed through the house. I checked my watch. Ben was right on time. "Arthur, you magnificent nerd." Ben's voice boomed as I opened the front door. He pulled me into a bear hug, his cologne overpowering. "I got your message. What's this treasure you've been dying to show me?" I led him through the house to my study. Ben had been my friend since 3rd grade, when he'd defended me from bullies who mocked my interest in puzzles. Over the years, he'd listened patiently as I explained each new acquisition, nodding along even when I knew the mechanical details bored him. "Prepare yourself," I said, pressing the hidden switch. The false wall swung open. Ben whistled as we entered my sanctuary. Still amazes me every time, like stepping into another world. I retrieved the Damascus cipher from its case. This arrived yesterday, the holy grail of mechanical puzzles. Ben's eyes widened as I placed it in his hands. "Heavy. What's it worth?" "Around 200,000. But the historical value is priceless. See these inscriptions? They tell the story of its creation." His fingers explored the surface, lingering on each gear. "How does it work?" I pointed to the central mechanism. "The key is understanding the pattern. Each gear must align perfectly before the next will turn. Force it and the whole system locks. Patience is everything." Patience was never my strong suit, Ben laughed. But something flickered behind his eyes. "Remember that puzzle competition in college?" The memory surfaced unbidden. I'd won 1st place with a perfect solve of the navigator's box. Ben had come in 5th after trying to force the mechanism and jamming it completely. "That was a long time ago," I said, taking the Damascus cipher back. "Not that long." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You've always had the magic touch with these things." I returned the puzzle to its case, suddenly uncomfortable. "I wanted you to see it before I start working on the solution. Could take months." "Months?" Ben shook his head. "I'll never understand how you have that kind of patience." We returned to the main study. I hesitated at my desk drawer, then pulled out a small key on a leather cord. "I've been meaning to give you this," I said. "Spare key to the house for emergencies." Ben's eyebrows rose. "You sure?" This is your fortress of solitude. 27 years of friendship earned some trust. I pressed the key into his palm. Besides, someone should know about the collection, just in case. He pocketed the key with an odd expression. I'm honored, really. Your secrets are safe with me. After Ben left, I returned to my sanctuary. Something felt off. The air seemed disturbed, carrying a faint trace of his cologne. I examined each puzzle, but nothing was out of place. Just my imagination, perhaps. I spent the next 2 hours studying the Damascus cipher, mapping its mechanisms in my notebook. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Each gear was a work of art, designed to move in perfect harmony with its neighbors. This wasn't just a puzzle, it was a masterpiece of patience rewarded. My phone buzzed. A text from Ben. Thanks again for sharing your treasure. You're a lucky man, Arthur. I smiled and set the phone aside. Lucky. Yes, I supposed I was. I had my health, my work, my collection, a life built on order and precision. 3 days later, everything changed. The archive had kept me late, cataloging a new collection of Civil War letters. Darkness had fallen by the time I pulled into my driveway. Something was wrong immediately. The front door stood slightly ajar. My heart pounded as I pushed it open. Hello? Silence. I moved through the house, checking each room. Nothing seemed disturbed until I reached the study. The hidden door was open. The metallic scent hit me first. Oil and something else. Something wrong. I stepped into my sanctuary and froze. Devastation. Every shelf had been emptied. Puzzles lay scattered across the floor, their mechanisms exposed and broken. Gears and springs covered every surface like mechanical confetti. The Chinese mystery box had been pried apart with some kind of tool, its delicate wooden panels splintered. The cryptex lay in pieces, its brass cylinders dented and scratched. But the Damascus cipher. Oh God, the Damascus cipher. It sat in the center of my work table, completely destroyed. Someone had taken a hammer to it, or perhaps a wrench. On that, intricate gears were bent beyond recognition. The silver inlays had been torn free. 5 centuries of craftsmanship reduced to scrap metal. A piece of paper lay beside it. My hands shook as I picked it up. Some things need to be solved the quick way. B. Ben's handwriting. Ben's initial. I sank to my knees among the wreckage. This wasn't theft. Nothing was missing. This was pure destruction. Systematic, deliberate, personal. My mind raced through our last conversation. His lingering touches on the Damascus cipher. The flash of something dark in his eyes when he mentioned the puzzle competition. 27 years of friendship and I'd missed the signs. A photo frame lay face down near the door. I turned it over. The glass was cracked, but the image remained clear. The college puzzle competition. Me holding the winner's trophy. Ben standing to the side, his smile tight and forced. I'd kept it as a memory of our friendship. He'd apparently kept it as a reminder of his humiliation. I picked up a gear from the Damascus cipher. The metal was still warm, as if freshly broken. Ben had done this recently. Perhaps even while I was still at work using the key I'd given him. The key I'd given him. I sat among the ruins until dawn, cataloging every broken piece. My archival training took over, documenting the destruction with clinical precision. Each photograph captured another violated mechanism, another shattered dream. The morning light revealed details I'd missed in my initial shock. Tool marks on the wooden cases, scratches where metal had been forced against metal. This wasn't just destruction, it was rage made physical. The Damascus cipher drew me back again and again. I gathered its pieces, laying them out like a metallic autopsy. The main gear assembly had been struck with tremendous force, bending the axis beyond repair. Someone had used pliers to twist the delicate silver inlays, leaving gouges in the brass. The craftsmanship that had survived 5 centuries couldn't survive one night of Ben's jealousy. I found more evidence as I searched. A wrapper from Ben's favorite energy drink crumpled in the corner. Mud from his boots tracked across my Persian rug. He hadn't even tried to hide his presence. He wanted me to know. My phone had 37 messages. Friends from the collector community asking if I'd heard about a rare puzzle appearing on the black market. My insurance agent confirming my policy details. Ben, of all people, asking if I wanted to grab lunch. I stared at his message for a long time. The casualness of it, the pretense of normalcy, as if he hadn't just destroyed 20 years of my life's passion. I typed a reply. Sure, tomorrow at Marino's. Need to talk. His response came instantly. Perfect, been too long since we caught up properly. The false cheer made my stomach turn. I set the phone aside and continued my documentation. By noon, I had a complete inventory, 47 puzzles destroyed. Total value, approximately $1.2 million. Insurance would cover most of it, but money wasn't the point. These weren't just objects. They were pieces of history, each with its own story. Now those stories ended in violence. I pulled out my laptop and began researching. Not about puzzles this time. About Ben. The surface layer was easy to find. He worked as a financial advisor at Crestwood Investments, married to Rachel for 3 years. No children, house in the suburbs with a mortgage slightly above his means. Active on social media, posting pictures of expensive dinners and weekend getaways. I dug deeper. The dark web yielded more interesting results. Gambling sites where his username appeared frequently. Forum posts discussing sure-thing investment strategies. A pattern emerged of someone living beyond his means, chasing the appearance of success. I found his wife's Instagram. Rachel documented their life obsessively. Designer handbags, jewelry that cost more than Ben's monthly salary, trips to resorts they couldn't afford. Either Ben had a secret source of income, or he was drowning in debt. The employee directory at Crestwood Investments listed Ben's boss as Margaret Sullivan. A quick search revealed she was going through a messy divorce. Interesting. I created a spreadsheet, mapping connections. Ben's gambling timestamps aligned with large cash withdrawals from Crestwood accounts. His expensive gifts to Rachel coincided with unexplained bonuses. The trips matched periods when Margaret was traveling for business. A notification popped up. Ben had tagged me in a post. Throwback Thursday, me and my best friend Arthur at the state puzzle championship. Some things never change. The photo showed us at the competition. Me holding the trophy, Ben standing stiffly beside me. His caption seemed innocent enough, but now I saw the bitterness behind it. Some things never change, he was right about that. I spent the rest of the day building profiles. Ben's boss, Margaret, secretly involved with a subordinate. Rachel, living in blissful ignorance of their precarious finances. Ben's gambling associates, shady characters who wouldn't hesitate to collect debts by any means necessary. By evening, I had a plan. The next day, I arrived at Marino's early. The restaurant bustled with the lunch crowd, but I'd secured a quiet corner booth. I ordered water and waited. Ben arrived precisely at noon, all smiles and warmth. He slid into the booth across from me. Arthur, you look tired. Everything okay? I studied him carefully. No signs of guilt. No nervous energy. Just the same easy confidence he'd always projected. Rough night, had some trouble at home. Oh? His concern seemed genuine. Nothing serious, I hope. Someone broke into my collection room. His eyes widened perfectly. No, that's terrible. Were you robbed? Not robbed. Destroyed. Every single puzzle smashed to pieces. Jesus. He reached across the table, gripping my arm. I'm so sorry. Any idea who did it? I pulled out the note, watching his face as I unfolded it. They left. This. Ben read it, his expression cycling through confusion, shock, and outrage. This is sick. Have you called the police? Not yet. I folded the note carefully. I wanted to talk to you first. Me? Why? His confusion seemed genuine. Academy Award worthy. Because it's your handwriting, Ben. He jerked back as if slapped. What? Arthur, that's insane. Why would I destroy your collection? The puzzle competition. I kept my voice level. The way you looked at the Damascus cipher, 27 years of resentment finally boiling over. This is crazy. He stood up. I can't believe you'd accuse me of something like this, after everything we've been through. Sit down, Ben. Something in my tone made him pause. He sat slowly, his mask slipping for just a moment. I'm not going to the police, I said. Not yet. His shoulders relaxed slightly. Because you know I didn't do it. Because I want to understand why you did. I leaned forward. Was it worth it? Did destroying my collection make you feel better about losing that competition? About the fact that I succeeded at something you never could? The mask cracked completely. For a split second I saw pure hatred in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by injured innocence. I think we're done here. He stood again. When you come to your senses and realize how paranoid you sound, give me a call. Maybe I'll still be willing to forgive this accusation. I watched him leave, noting how his hands shook slightly as he pushed through the door. He thought he'd won. He thought his performance had fooled me. He was wrong. I paid for my water and left. On the drive home, I called my insurance company and filed a claim. Then I called a locksmith to change all my locks. Finally, I called my lawyer to update my will, removing Ben as a beneficiary. Back in my ruined sanctuary, I opened my laptop and began the real work. If Ben wanted to solve things the quick way, I'd show him what happened when someone took the slow, methodical approach to destruction. I started with his gambling problem. The sites he frequented had laughably poor security. Within hours, I had records of every bet he'd placed in the past 5 years. The losses were staggering. No wonder he needed to embezzle from Crestwood. Next, I tackled his affair with Margaret. Her email password was her dog's name followed by her birthday. Amateur. Their correspondence painted a clear picture. She provided cover for his embezzlement. He provided excitement in her failing marriage. Both thought they were using the other. Rachel's social media gave me everything else I needed. Photos from their lavish lifestyle, each tagged with locations and dates. Cross-referenced with Ben's work calendar, they told a story of systematic fraud. I created detailed dossiers on each player in Ben's web of lies. Margaret Sullivan, vulnerable to blackmail, desperate to keep her position. Rachel Carter, image-obsessed, would do anything to maintain her lifestyle. The gambling syndicate, brutal enforcers who didn't care about excuses. By midnight, I had everything mapped out. Ben had built his life like a poorly designed puzzle, each piece dependent on the others. Remove one, and the whole structure would collapse. I sat back, surrounded by the wreckage of my collection, and smiled. Ben thought he understood puzzles, because he could force them open. He didn't realize that true mastery came from patience, from understanding how each piece connected to the whole. He'd forced my puzzles open with brute strength. I would solve the puzzle of his life with precision. The first move required precision. I spent 3 days studying Ben's patterns, tracking his movements through social media check-ins and security cameras near his office. He had lunch at the same deli every Tuesday, played poker at an underground club every Thursday night. Met Margaret at the Riverside Hotel every other Friday. Monday morning, I made my opening play. Using a burner phone, I created an anonymous email account and sent Ben's gambling history to his 3 largest creditors. The spreadsheet detailed every loss, every borrowed dollar, every missed payment. I included screenshots of his social media posts showing expensive purchases made during the same periods he claimed to be broke. By Wednesday, the first domino fell. Ben's phone buzzed constantly during our collectors forum meeting. He kept stepping out to take calls, returning each time more agitated. When he thought no one was looking, I saw him pop antacids like candy. Everything okay? I asked, feigning concern. Fine, he snapped. Just some client issues. That evening, I watched from my car as 2 large men in dark suits visited Ben's house. They stayed for exactly 23 minutes. When they left, Ben's Mercedes had a new dent in the driver's side door. Phase 2 began Thursday night. I created social media profiles for fictional personas, a concerned neighbor, a bitter ex-employee, a suspicious bank teller. Each account began sharing carefully curated information about Ben's lifestyle, photos of his house, his car, Rachel's jewelry collection, all tagged with phrases like, "must be nice" and "wonder where the money comes from." The gossip spread through their social circle like wildfire. By Saturday, Rachel's sister had called her 3 times asking pointed questions about their finances. Sunday brought the third move. I accessed Crestwood's client database using Margaret's compromised credentials. Her password hadn't changed. I downloaded transaction records showing a pattern of suspicious transfers from high-value accounts to offshore holdings. The transfers matched dates when Ben had signature authority, and Margaret was conveniently traveling. I packaged this information differently for each recipient. To Crestwood's board of directors, I sent an anonymous tip about potential fraud. To Margaret's soon-to-be ex-husband's lawyer, I provided evidence of her affair and financial misconduct. To the SEC, I submitted a formal whistleblower complaint. Monday morning, Crestwood's internal audit team descended on Ben's department. He called me during lunch, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Arthur, I need a favor. Can you lend me some money just temporarily?" I paused, savoring the moment. "What's going on?" "Nothing serious, just some cash flow issues. You know how it is." I thought financial advisors were supposed to be good with money. His laugh sounded forced. "Everyone has rough patches, so can you help?" "Let me check my accounts," I lied. "Things are pretty tight after losing my collection." The silence stretched between us. Finally, he muttered something about understanding and hung up. Tuesday brought new developments. Margaret was suspended pending investigation. Without her protection, Ben's house of cards began collapsing faster. Rachel discovered their joint account was overdrawn when her credit card was declined at Nordstrom. The scene she caused became legendary among the sales staff. I maintained my routine, attending work at the archive, cataloging documents with methodical precision. But every evening, I returned to my war room. The destroyed puzzles still covered my tables, a constant reminder of why I was doing this. Wednesday afternoon, I executed the fourth move. Using Ben's own email templates, I sent messages to his top clients recommending they transfer their portfolios to more stable management. The emails went out at 3:47 p.m., timed to coincide with Ben's weekly partners meeting. By Thursday, 6 major clients had requested immediate transfers. Crestwood's compliance department launched a full investigation into Ben's activities. That evening, instead of attending his usual poker game, Ben spent 4 hours at his lawyer's office. Friday marked the 5th move. I created a detailed timeline of Ben's embezzlement, complete with bank records, forged signatures, and transaction histories. This package went to Rachel via courier, along with printed screenshots of Ben's intimate messages with Margaret. I parked across from their house that evening, watching through binoculars as Rachel's Lexus screeched into the driveway. The argument lasted 3 hours. Neighbors called the police twice. Ben left with 2 suitcases and spent the night at a budget motel. Saturday morning, I visited my bank and withdrew $50,000 in cash. The teller raised an eyebrow but processed the transaction without comment. I divided the money into separate envelopes, each containing evidence of Ben's gambling debts and a note suggesting this was a down payment on what he owed. The envelopes went to 5 different criminal organizations Ben had borrowed from. Each included his current location and daily schedule. Sunday brought a text from Ben. "We need to talk, please." I agreed to meet him at Marino's again. This time he arrived disheveled, unshaven, his expensive suit wrinkled. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "My life is falling apart," he said without preamble. "I'm sorry to hear that." I sipped my water. "What happened?" "Everything. Rachel left me. Work suspended me. Someone's been spreading lies about my finances." "Are they lies?" He glared at me. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just asking. You called me for money earlier this week." Sounds like there might be some truth to the rumors. His hands clenched on the table. Someone's doing this to me, deliberately, destroying my life. Like someone deliberately destroyed my puzzles? His face went pale. That's different. Is it? I leaned forward. You systematically destroyed things I loved. Now someone's systematically destroying things you love. Seems fairly similar to me. You think this is justice? His voice rose. Ruining my marriage? My career? I think you're experiencing what happens when someone solves the puzzle of your life. When they understand how all the pieces fit together, and then methodically take them apart. He stared at me, understanding dawning in his eyes. You're doing this. I smiled. Prove it. I'll go to the police, tell them everything. Tell them what? That you committed fraud, embezzlement, and adultery? That you destroyed $1 million worth of antiques? Please, go ahead. His shoulders slumped. What? Do you want? Nothing, I already have what I want. My life is destroyed. No. I stood up. Your life is being solved. The quick way. I left him sitting there staring at his hands. Outside, I breathed deeply, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The game wasn't over, but the crucial moves had been made. Ben's life would continue unraveling, each thread I'd pulled leading to another, then another. That evening, I sat in my empty sanctuary. The broken puzzles still covered every surface, but now they felt different. Not like victims, but like teachers. They'd shown me that sometimes destruction was just another form of creation. I opened my laptop and continued working. There were still loose ends to tie up, final moves to make. Ben's gambling debts needed to come due. His affair with Margaret required proper exposure. The SEC investigation needed additional evidence. But I was patient. I understood that true satisfaction came not from the quick solution, but from watching each piece fall perfectly into place. Ben's unraveling accelerated. Monday morning, I watched from my car as repo men towed away his Mercedes. Rachel had canceled the insurance and reported it as a marital asset in their separation filing. Ben stood in his driveway, still wearing pajama pants, gesturing wildly as the truck disappeared around the corner. I created new social media profiles to befriend Margaret Sullivan's social circle. Within days, I had access to her private Instagram stories where she vented about the investigation. Her posts revealed her growing paranoia about Ben's loyalty. She suspected he might throw her under the bus to save himself. I fed that paranoia. Anonymous emails arrived in her inbox suggesting Ben was cooperating with investigators. Doctored. Screenshots showed Ben meeting with federal agents. A fabricated memo implied he'd agreed to testify against her in exchange for immunity. Wednesday afternoon, Margaret cracked. She marched into the district attorney's office with boxes of evidence implicating Ben in the embezzlement scheme. Her lawyer negotiated a deal, full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Ben's protection evaporated completely. That evening, Ben called me 17 times. I let each call go to voicemail. His messages progressed from angry demands to desperate pleas. Around midnight, he left a final message. Arthur, please. I'm sorry about the puzzles. I'll make it right. Just make this stop. I listened to his voice crack and felt nothing. Thursday brought federal marshals to Crestwood Investments. They seized Ben's computer files and personal effects. Security escorted him from the building in full view of his colleagues. Someone filmed it on their phone. By evening, the video had circulated through every financial firm in the city. Rachel filed for divorce Friday morning. Her lawyer, apparently working on contingency, had uncovered the full extent of Ben's deception. Hidden debts, secret credit, cards, loans against their house. She wanted everything. The house, the cars, his retirement accounts, even his watch collection. I continued escalating. Using the evidence I'd gathered, I created detailed packages for each of Ben's victims. His gambling associates received maps of his daily routine. Rachel's divorce attorney got documentation of offshore accounts Ben thought were hidden. The IRS received a comprehensive report of unreported income and tax fraud dating back 7 years. Saturday night, Ben appeared at my door. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 2 weeks. His suit hung loose on his frame. His hands shook as he held them up in a gesture of surrender. "Can I come in?" His voice was hoarse. I stepped aside. He shuffled into my living room, avoiding eye contact with the empty shelves that once held my collection. "You win," he said, collapsing onto my couch. "Whatever point you were trying to make, you've made it. I'm finished." "I don't know what you mean." I remained standing. "Drop the act, Arthur. We both know you did this. You took apart my life piece by piece, just like I took apart your puzzles." "Interesting theory." He laughed bitterly. "Theory? I'm facing federal charges. My wife took everything. Margaret turned state's evidence. I owe money to people who break legs for a living. And somehow they all found out about my problems at exactly the same time. Sounds like your own choices catching up with you." "Christ, listen to yourself." He looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot. "When did you become this person, this cold, calculating machine?" "The night you destroyed everything I cared about." "They were just puzzles, Arthur." I felt my composure crack for the first time. They were not just puzzles, they were history, art, challenges that required patience and respect. You violated that. You violated 30 years of friendship because you couldn't stand that I had something you didn't. I was jealous, okay? He buried his face in his hands. That stupid competition in college. You solving every puzzle like it was nothing while I struggled. Then watching you build this perfect little world while I had to lie and cheat just to keep up appearances. So you destroyed it. I wanted you to feel what I felt. That frustration, that anger at something you couldn't fix. But I did fix it. I sat across from him. I solved the puzzle of your life and took it apart properly. No brute force, no hammers, just patience and precision. He stared at me. "You're enjoying this." "I'm satisfied by the solution. What happens now?" "That depends on you. The federal charges will likely result in prison time. Your gambling debts are significant. Your professional reputation is destroyed. You could run, but I think we both know how that would end. Or you face the consequences of your actions. Take responsibility. Serve your time. Pay your debts. Maybe in a few years you can start rebuilding something honest." He laughed again, a hollow sound. "You're giving me advice now? Consider it a final puzzle. Can you solve your own life without forcing it?" Ben stood slowly. "I need money." "Arthur, just enough to get away, start over somewhere." "No. Please, for our friendship." "Our friendship ended the moment you used that key to destroy my collection." He nodded, defeated. "I suppose it did." At the door, he turned back. "Did you ever consider forgiving me?" "Every day," I admitted. And every day, I looked at the Damascus Cipher's pieces and chose not to. After he left, I poured myself a drink and sat in my empty sanctuary. The broken puzzles still covered every surface, but I'd grown used to them. They reminded me that everything could be solved, even destruction itself. Monday morning brought news of Ben's arrest. He'd tried to flee the country using a fake passport. Federal agents caught him at the airport with a suitcase full of cash he'd borrowed from increasingly dangerous people. I attended every day of his trial. Watched as prosecutors laid out the evidence I'd helped uncover. Listened as Margaret testified against him. Saw Rachel's cold stare from the gallery. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. At sentencing, Ben's lawyer argued for leniency, citing his client's remorse and willingness to make restitution. The judge remained unmoved. 8 years in federal prison, full restitution to victims, lifetime ban from financial services. As marshals led him away, Ben looked directly at me. I met his gaze without flinching. He nodded once, perhaps finally understanding the true nature of the puzzle he'd failed to solve. That evening, I began cleaning my sanctuary. Each broken piece went into carefully labeled boxes. The Damascus Cipher's remains filled 3 containers. I photographed everything for insurance purposes, though money had long ceased to be the point. A week later, I received a letter from Ben. Federal prison stationery. His handwriting looked shaky. Arthur, I understand now. The quick solution is no solution at all. You gave me what I deserved, using the very patience I mocked. I'm sorry for what I did. Not because of where I ended up, but because I betrayed the one person who truly understood me. Maybe someday I'll earn the right to call you friend again. Until then, I have plenty of time to learn patience. Ben. I filed the letter with my insurance documents and continued rebuilding my collection. Some puzzles, once forced, could never be properly solved again. But new challenges always awaited those with patience to find them. The summer heat made the federal courthouse feel like an oven. I adjusted my tie and settled into the gallery for Ben's final hearing. 3 months had passed since his sentencing, but new evidence had surfaced, evidence I'd carefully planted weeks before his arrest. Ben entered in an orange jumpsuit, his wrists shackled. Prison had stripped away his artificial confidence. He scanned the room until his eyes found mine. I nodded slightly, watching his face pale. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, we've uncovered additional financial crimes committed by the defendant. These involve international wire fraud and money laundering through shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. Ben's lawyer jumped up. We haven't been notified of these new charges. The evidence arrived anonymously last night, the prosecutor continued. Bank records, emails, and transaction histories dating back 5 years. I suppressed a smile. The records were real. I'd found them in Ben's poorly secured cloud storage months ago. His arrogance extended to his password choices. Ben Rules 23 had taken me less than a minute to crack. The judge reviewed the documents. This is substantial. Mr. Carter, how do you plead to these additional charges? Ben's shoulders slumped. Guilty, Your Honor. His sentence increased to 12 years. As they led him away, he looked back at me one final time. I mouthed the words quick solution and watched understanding dawn in his eyes. That afternoon, I received a call from Rachel's attorney. Mr. Penhaligon, we understand you have information about hidden assets? I might, I replied carefully. What specifically are you looking for? Anything Ben failed to disclose during discovery. I emailed her a comprehensive list of Ben's cryptocurrency wallets, offshore accounts, and safety deposit boxes. The total value exceeded $2 million. Rachel's divorce settlement would strip Ben of everything. The next phase required patience. I spent weeks crafting the perfect anonymous letter to the IRS. It detailed Ben's tax evasion schemes with surgical precision. The audit would take years and consume any resources he might accumulate after prison. I also contacted the professional boards overseeing financial advisors. My report ensured Ben would never work in finance again. Even his backup plan of becoming a consultant died before it began. But the masterstroke came through his prison correspondence. I'd gained access to the facility's email system through a security flaw I'd discovered. Ben had been writing to various contacts trying to arrange protection and funds for when he got out. I intercepted every message. Some I deleted. Others I modified slightly, changing account numbers or meeting locations. His support network crumbled without him realizing why. The gambling syndicates required special handling. I created a paper trail suggesting Ben had cooperated with authorities to reduce his sentence. Whether true or not didn't matter. The mere suspicion would make him radioactive to criminal organizations. 6 months into his sentence, I arranged a meeting. The visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. Ben shuffled in, looking decades older than his 35 years. Why are you here? He asked, sitting across from me. To show you something. I pulled out a folder containing photos of my new collection. I've started rebuilding. He flipped through the images. Beautiful puzzles from around the world. Some even rarer than what he'd destroyed. Insurance money? His voice was bitter. Partially. Also, I've been consulting for museums. Turns out my expertise is quite valuable. So you've moved on. From the puzzles? Yes. From what you did? Never. He closed the folder. The new charges, the hidden accounts Rachel found, the IRS audit. That was all you. Prove it. I can't. That's the point, isn't it? He laughed humorlessly. You've thought of everything. Not everything. Just enough. What happens when I get out? I leaned forward. You won't have money. You won't have a career. Your ex-wife will have taken everything. The people you owe will be waiting. And I'll still be watching. For how long? How long did our friendship last? 27 years? Consider this a matching commitment. He absorbed this silently. You know what the worst part is? I keep thinking about that night, walking through your collection with a crowbar, the sound each puzzle made when it broke. And I can't remember why it felt good. Because it didn't feel good. It felt powerful. You confused the two. And now you're doing the same thing. No. I stood. I'm solving a problem. Methodically, completely. Without the emotional satisfaction you sought. That's a lie. You're enjoying this. I'm enjoying the precision, the completeness, the justice, but not the destruction itself. That's the difference between us. I left him there and drove home to my rebuilt sanctuary. The new puzzles gleamed on their shelves. The Damascus cipher's replacement occupied the place of honor. I'd tracked down another one in Syria, paying triple its value to secure it quickly. That evening, I received an alert from my monitoring system. Ben had tried to email someone named Carlos, a connection from his gambling days. The message pleaded for protection and promised future payment. I intercepted it and replied from a spoofed account, "Don't contact me again. You're poisoned now." Ben's response came within minutes. "Please, I have nowhere else to turn." I deleted both messages from the server. Carlos would never know Ben had reached out. The next day, I anonymously sent Ben's prison records to every major employer in our industry. His name would trigger red flags in any background check for decades. I also planted seeds in the prison population. Rumors spread that Ben had testified against connected inmates to reduce his sentence. His daily life became significantly more difficult. Through it all, I maintained my routine. Work at the archive, evenings with my puzzles, weekends consulting, for museums. To outside observers, I'd moved on completely from the incident. But every night I checked my monitoring systems, tracked Ben's correspondence, updated my files on his remaining contacts, adjusted my plans as needed. A year into his sentence, Ben attempted suicide. He survived but spent a month in psychiatric evaluation. I felt nothing when I heard the news. He'd chosen his path the night he broke into my sanctuary. 2 years in, Rachel remarried, a tech entrepreneur with actual wealth. She sent me a wedding invitation, though we'd barely spoken before. I attended and gave them an antique puzzle box as a gift. 3 years in, Margaret Sullivan finished her reduced sentence. She immediately fled the country. I ensured Ben knew she'd abandoned him completely. 4 years in, the IRS completed its audit. Ben owed 7 figures in back taxes and penalties. Any inheritance or future earnings would go directly to the government. 5 years in, his mother passed away. I attended the funeral. Ben got a supervised release to attend. He stood shackled at the graveside while I offered condolences to his family. His sister thanked me for coming, unaware of my role in her brother's downfall. "You're relentless," Ben whispered as they led him back to the transport van. "I'm thorough," I corrected. Each year brought new ways to ensure Ben's permanent exile from society. I destroyed job opportunities before they materialized, sabotaged potential relationships, blocked paths to redemption. Some might call it cruel. I called it justice. He'd tried to destroy my world with brute force. I'd succeeded in destroying his with patience and precision. The quick solution versus the complete solution. In the end, there was no comparison. Year 12 arrived with little fanfare. Ben had served his full sentence. I watched from my car as he emerged from the federal facility, carrying a single cardboard box. No one waited to greet him. No car idled at the curb. He stood for a moment, blinking in the harsh sunlight before walking to the bus stop. I had prepared for this day meticulously. Every potential employer in our state had his complete criminal history. Every apartment complex had received anonymous warnings about his background. His bank accounts remained frozen by IRS liens. Even homeless shelters had his photo with notes about his manipulative nature. 3 days after his release, I arranged our final meeting. Not at Marino's, which had closed years ago, but at a small cafe downtown. I arrived early, selecting a table by the window. Ben appeared exactly on time. Prison had left him gaunt and gray, but his eyes held something new. Not defeat, not anger. Something closer to acceptance. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sitting down. "You said it was important." He placed a small wooden box on the table. "I made this. They have workshops in prison, woodworking, metalcraft. I spent 7 years learning patience." I recognized the design immediately. It was a replica of a puzzle box from my original collection, simple but elegant. The craftsmanship was surprisingly good. "Open it," he said. Inside lay a single brass key, not to my house. That lock had changed long ago. This was older, tarnished with age. "From our first apartment in college," Ben explained. "I kept it all these years, a reminder of when our friendship was real." I studied the key. Why give this to me now? Because I finally understand what I destroyed. Not just puzzles, trust, history. The patience you tried to teach me through. Example. He paused. "I can't undo what I did, but I can acknowledge it properly. And what do you want in return?" "Nothing. That's what took me 12 years to learn. Some things can't be fixed or traded or negotiated. They can only be accepted." I turned the key over in my fingers. "What's your plan now?" "I have a job offer, washing dishes at a diner in Montana. My parole officer arranged it. It's honest work, far from everything I knew." He smiled slightly. "Far from you, too. You know I can reach you anywhere." "I know, but I'm asking you not to." I considered this. Why should I stop? Because continuing proves I was right. That destruction is power. That patience has limits. He leaned forward. "You solved the puzzle of my life completely. Every piece dismantled and catalogued. But what happens to a puzzle solver with no puzzle left to solve?" The question hung between us. I hadn't considered this endpoint. 12 years of methodical destruction. And now what? "I've arranged a final gift," I said, reaching into my briefcase. "Your complete file. Every document, every scheme, every move I made against you. Consider it a user manual for your own destruction." Ben took the thick folder without opening it. "Why give me this?" "Because the puzzle is complete. You should see the solution." He nodded slowly. "And after today?" "After today, you don't exist to me. If you stay away, stay honest, I'll honor that. But if you ever return to your old ways, if you ever try to contact me or interfere with my life again, this folder is just the beginning of what I can do." "Understood." He stood, picking up the wooden box. "Goodbye, Arthur. Thank you for the lesson." I watched him leave, the brass key still in my hand. For the first time in 12 years, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. That evening, I sat in my sanctuary surrounded by my new collection. The replacement Damascus cipher gleamed in its case. Each puzzle represented not just history but victory, the victory of patience over force. But Ben's question lingered. What happens to a puzzle solver with no puzzle left to solve? The answer came 6 months later. A letter arrived from Montana. Inside was a newspaper clipping. Local diner owner creates free workshop for troubled youth. The article featured Ben, teaching young offenders woodworking and patience. He'd turned his prison skills into something constructive. I felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness. Never that. But perhaps respect for someone finally learning the lesson I'd spent 12 years teaching. I turned to my collection with new eyes. These weren't trophies of revenge anymore. They were what they'd always been. Challenges waiting to be solved with patience and respect. The next day I began something new. The Penhaligon Museum of Mechanical Puzzles. A place where people could learn the art of patient problem-solving, where the Damascus cipher would teach its lessons to new generations. The grand opening drew collectors from around the world. As I cut the ribbon, I noticed a package among the congratulatory flowers. Inside was an intricate wooden puzzle box. No note, no signature. But I recognized the craftsmanship. I spent 3 days solving it properly. No force, no shortcuts. Inside lay a single piece of paper. The student has learned. The teacher can rest. I placed Ben's puzzle in the museum collection. Not in a place of honor, but not hidden either. It belonged to the story now. The story of how destruction led to creation. How revenge became rebirth. How the quick solution gave way to the complete one. Visitors often asked about that particular puzzle. I told them only that it came from someone who learned patience the hard way. They nodded, thinking they understood. But the full story remained, mine alone. Years passed. The museum flourished. I heard Ben had expanded his program, helping dozens of young people avoid the mistakes he'd made. We never spoke again, but sometimes packages arrived. Each contained a puzzle of increasing complexity, each solved properly, with patience. The Damascus cipher still held the place of honor in my collection. But now, it had a small plaque beside. In memory of 27 years of friendship, 12 years of justice, and a lifetime of lessons learned. Some visitors found the plaque cryptic. Others sensed a deeper story. I offered no explanations. Like all good puzzles, it revealed its meaning only to those with patience to understand. I still checked on Ben occasionally. Not to interfere, but to ensure he kept his promise. He did. His little diner in Montana became a community hub. His workshop grew into a respected program. He lived simply, honestly, without trying to reclaim what he'd lost. In the end, we'd both solved our puzzles. His was redemption through acceptance. Mine was justice through patience. Neither path was quick, but both were complete. I sometimes wondered if he knew I still watched. If he sensed my presence in his continued success. Perhaps he did. Perhaps that knowledge kept him honest. Or perhaps he'd truly changed, making my vigilance unnecessary. It didn't matter. The puzzle was solved. The pieces fit perfectly. And sometimes the most satisfying solution is knowing when to stop solving. The brass key from our college apartment still sits in my desk drawer. A reminder that some things, once broken, can never be restored. But from their pieces, we can build something new, something better, something worth the patience it takes to create.